Okay, the utter and essential dishonesty of members of the media who are taking people out of context on this pandemic thing is truly it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. So you remember early on, President Trump suggested that the Democrats were engaged in a hoax by blaming him for all the impacts of coronavirus. And this became a talking point for the Democrats, who then claimed that Trump was actually saying that coronavirus itself was a hoax. He never said coronavirus itself was a hoax, but this became the talking point. And Nancy Pelosi went on TV and repeated it every day. It didn't matter. It was a for Pinocchio claim, according to the Washington Post. Did not matter. It has been trotted out ever since to claim that President Trump claimed that coronavirus itself was a hoax. Well, now the Democrats have a second round of this. So Jared Kushner, who's the chief advisor to the president, he goes on television and he says, listen, the federal response to this thing has been a success story. Not the coronavirus is a success story. The federal government's response to this is a success story because we responded as governors need us to respond. Here's what Jared Kushner said, and then we'll explain, and then we'll show how it has been deliberately twisted by members of the media to suggest that Jared Kushner is celebrating 60,000 dead Americans. It's just, this kind of stuff is just sheer garbage. Here is Jared Kushner on Fox and Friends the other day.
We're on the other side of the medical aspect of this, and I think that we've achieved all the different milestones that are needed. So the government, federal government, rose to the challenge, and this is a great success story. And I think that that's really, what needs to be told.
Okay, so again, he is saying that the federal government's success here is a story that needs to be told. 100% true. 100% true. All you have seen, you saw it for weeks. Where are the ventilators? Where are the ventilators? Why isn't Trump doing a better job on ventilators? People are going to die because they don't have ventilators. First of all, that was always exaggerated to a certain extent because guess what the death rate on ventilators is? It is, by most studies, in excess of 90%. But beyond all of that, guess what didn't happen? 30,000 ventilators needed in New York. It was not necessary. And when Trump said they're not going to need 30,000 ventilators in New York, he was torn apart for it. Andrew Cuomo says they will. How many ventilators were needed? Not 30. I don't believe they needed 10. The federal government got them the ventilators. The federal government has been responsible for getting people the personal protective equipment. The federal government has been responsible for a $7 trillion bailout. The federal government response here has been as active as any response in the history of America and more active than virtually all of them. And you know who is saying that sort of stuff? Democrats. Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey, no ally to the president of the United States. He says, New Jersey's getting pretty hard hit right now. He says, listen, the federal government is giving us the supplies we need. We're receiving what we need from the Trump administration. You've heard the same message from Andrew Cuomo. You've heard the same message from Gavin Newsom, Jay Inslee. Democrats across the nation have been consistently saying over and over and over, we asked the federal government for this, and we got it. Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan says this. Frankly, I'm shocked that the Trump administration has not cut an ad so far, or the Trump campaign has not cut an ad that just has all the various Democrats saying we asked for what we need and we got it. Because that is true. Here is Phil Murphy yesterday saying this.
Can't thank the president and his team enough in terms of what we've gotten already in terms of ventilators, bed capacity through the Army Corps, PPE, et cetera. But we are embarking upon a very significant partnership to more than double expand our testing amounts and numbers in New Jersey by at latest the end of May.
Okay, so there he is explaining the federal government has done its job. The federal government, I know, buried lead. The federal government has done its job. This is not Trump's Katrina. By the way, Bush's Katrina wasn't Bush's Katrina. But this is not Trump's Katrina. It's not Trump's Vietnam. The Trump administration, put aside the dumb stuff that Trump says in press conferences, because that's just Trump being Trump and we all get it. And anybody who pretends not to get it is being deliberately obtuse. We all understand what Trump is and what he has said, and we understand what he does. We all get it. And anybody who doesn't is lying to you. Here's the reality. The federal government did its job. That is a success story. The media will not tell that success story. I would guarantee that if you do a search for ventilators right now in the media, if you just search the word ventilators at the New York Times in the media, you will see this enormous spike in the early days when the demands were ventilators, 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 ventilators. And then the federal government got them the ventilators and then whoosh, gone. When's the last time you heard somebody on national TV mention the word ventilators? It's been a while, huh? You know why? Because New York didn't exhaust the supply of ventilators. No one has. Remember when they said we don't have enough hospital beds in New York and the feds were like, okay, but we'll get you the hospital beds you need? Guess what didn't happen? An overrun of the hospital system. Andrew Cuomo sent away the U.S. Navy's ship Comfort. Remember, it was a huge story when the Comfort arrived? Not as big a story when it went away, was it? So when Jared Kushner says it was a success story by the federal government, that's because it was a success story by the federal government. And they continue to work to provide for the needs of states, many of which should have been providing for those needs themselves. Okay, so this all leads up to The View. Here was The View yesterday, deliberately misinterpreting Kushner's comments to suggest that he was saying that it was a success that 60,000 people had died.
Those were some of the most tone-deaf comments I've heard from the administration. We know that Jared Kushner has been sort of the behind-the-scenes task force leader, Corona task force leader. He's been instrumental in this response, this piss-poor response, and 60,000 Americans have lost their lives. So to call this a rousing success story is shocking. It's cruel.
Okay, Sunny Hostin, I'd like to hear you define the piss poor response. Really, what should they have done better? What were the things they should have done better? And the Democrats were stumping for heavily in February. And really, the widespread media lie that the federal government's response has been piss poor is absolutely rebutted by Democratic governor after Democratic governor saying we asked for what we needed and then we got it from the feds. The attempt to twist what Kushner is saying into, yes, we're happy with 60,000 dead is insane. It's totally insane. But again, this is the media basically saying that Trump is a bad, mean man who doesn't care about human beings, and that's why he wants to reopen. And it's all ridiculous.